There you go. My guest today in this Women's Month 2020 series is TV producer who you know. Whether you know it or not, you know her. If you know Yizo-Yizo, Zone 14, Jacob's Cross, Isibaya, Ayeye, and many other productions. She even has productions at the Apartheid Museum. She is a multiple award-winning producer. Desiree Markgraff of Bomb Shelter Productions. Desiree, I don't think you have an idea how much impact you make, and I know you are well known in the industry, but your first recollection of Women's Day, August 9th, as a holiday or as a special day, do you remember when you first became aware of it?
Yes, I actually do. I was very blessed. I have a very incredible mother, and my mom died when I was 11. But you know, in 11 years that she was alive, I think I learned most of my lessons actually in life. So for me, it's a testament to the power of women. But my mother had spoken to me about Women's Day, and she had created an incredible imagination for me of, you know, these women from all over marching to Pretoria, you know, to protest against the pass laws. And, you know, the picture that she had painted for me as a child has sort of sat with me all my life about, you know, just the strength and the courage of women. So that was my first memory of it, is from my mom.
Wow, that sums it all up. So you from the age of 11, you have been sort of aware of this, because if she died when you were 10, 11, you would have already known about it. What has Desiree Markgraff's journey been, though, as a woman? What obstacles did you have to overcome? If the women of 1956 were protesting past laws and apartheid legislation, what did you, to get to where you are, have to overcome?
You know, it's a question actually I've been thinking a lot about, Victor. I've been thinking a lot about it in the context of where we are in the world today and white privilege. I was lucky enough to grow up in the early part of my life with my mom, who really conscientized me about the world that we were living in. And when she died, I felt like for maybe 10 years of my life, it was like a curtain was closed to that world. And so if you have to ask me what my obstacle was in life, my obstacle was to open my eyes to the world around me, and to understand the context, my own context in the country that I live in, and what role I could play in it. And so I suppose obstacles that I faced, if one just talks about normal obstacles in the context of today, you know, when I grew up, certainly it was a world that was a very paternal world, and it was very driven by strong, powerful men, and women were not really seen to be serious players in business, certainly not in the film industry. There were very few women producers. I can't even think of one woman director, you know, when I was growing up. And so the obstacles, I guess, for me were about surpassing those beliefs that women were not strong enough, that women couldn't be capable in that space. And you know, I think on that regard, you know, my mother was a really critical person in my life, because from small she seeded in me that I was capable of doing anything. So I never really took obstacles as anything more than, well, I've got to find a way around this. There's something in my path and it's blocking me. So how do I get around it?
Well, you had to get around without your mother from the age of 11. Who are the other women that have been your heroes, your icons, your 1956 icons growing up?
Sure. I mean, that's a big question. I don't know. I think if I have to answer that honestly, I would say that she definitely remained a huge part of my life, even to this day. You know, I'm now in my 50s, and many of the decisions I make to this day are things that I still remember that were taught to me in my childhood. But of course, along the way, you know, there were many women that I met that have inspired me, that have made me think deeper, You know, if I think even right now in my life, I'm working with an incredibly wonderful woman. She's in her 80s. Her name is Kerusiza Buthelezi, and I've started to get to know her life. And I find that myself now, I sit and I look at this woman's life and I think what an incredible inspiration she is in the obstacles that she overcame. And she, by the way, you know, did grow up in the era of women protesting against past laws. But even when I look at young women like Nomzamo Mbato, and I think, you know, here's a young woman, you know, who's taken all the opportunities that are around her and isn't scared to go out into the world and embrace it and challenge it and suck the marrow out of it. So, you know, for me, I found inspiration in pretty much many women that I've come across in my life, and you take little nuggets from each one and use
it. Sounds like you are inspired by the women you are mothering, because you are mentioning Nomzamo, who came through some of your productions. That's quite a counterintuitive way of a mother figure, isn't it? Because the women who are inspiring you are much younger than you, or are your proteges instead of the people that you say, I look up to because they came before me. That's because probably you were a trailblazer. You didn't have lots of women to emulate in the industry.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I admire lots of young women because I think that when I look at young women, I see a brave voice that's starting to come through. But, you know, and in particular, I admire South African women. I think that South African women have you know, kept the fireplaces of homes burning in very difficult times. Even if we talk now about gender-based violence and the difficulties that we face as women in this country today, you know, women that are challenging this. So, but yes, I get a lot of inspiration from young women, and, you know, I think it's a stream that flows both ways. If I can pass knowledge, I also learn. And I think you've got to be open to learning from younger people.
They say that's the best way to learn, teaching others or developing others. One thing that in Desiree Markgraff's opinion will have to be done to fight or tackle gender-based violence, please.
You know, I think it starts with us. I think it starts with women. I think it is about the boys we raise. I think it is about how we tackle things in our own house. I think it is about how we tackle things in the workplace. And I think that we have to look to ourselves very strongly to say, how are we going to change the young boys that we are growing up, and how are we going to challenge them? And then, of course, you know, I think we have to turn to the state in this moment and say, help us, protect us, create a policing environment that is sympathetic to women, that gives us a safe place to go to. I think those are the two key areas for me.
A message for Women's Day in 30 seconds. I mean, I know you've seen many of these days, but I'm sure 2020 is special.
You know, I think the key thing for me has always been, you know, dig deep into yourself, draw from your own power. Women are incredibly nurturing, and we nurture others. Use that same nurturing power to yourself as a woman, because you have to keep feeding yourself in order to be able to, you know, feed others.
Wow, that's it. That sums it all up. Desiree Markgraff, thank you very much for talking to us here. And we look forward to more productions, great productions from your stable.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.